quit hanging on to the broken pieces of your anxious heart. 'Cause he's ready to heal you, hold you, and clear out the space so you can breathe. And he was there on the mountain, the valley, the breakdown. Child, he sees everything. He sees everything. And he died to hold you in the dead of night, when no one's by your side. Oh, sweet by and by, to catch every tear you cry. Your fears should take your flight. Oh, sweet by and by, goodbye. You might have built a wall, but there's still a child behind that dead cold heart of stone. You're barely hanging on to a broken dream that you had when you were young, and life was so much slower. But now you're getting older, and the world's so much colder than you thought, and all of the words that break you slowly shaped you into someone that you wouldn't wanna love. He died to hold you in the dead of night, when no one's by your side. Oh, sweet by and by, and to catch every tear you cry. Your fears will take your flight. Oh, sweet by and by, he died so he could hold you in the dead of night, when no one's by your side. Oh, sweet by and by, and to catch every tear you cry. Your fears will take your flight. Oh, sweet by and by, your fears will take your flight. Oh, sweet by and by, goodbye.
Step out the front door like a ghost into the fog, where no one notices the contrast of white on white. And in between the moon and you, the angels get a better view of the crumbling difference between wrong and right. Well, I walked in the air between the rain, threw myself and back again, where I don't know. Maria says she's dying, but through the door I hear her crying. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Round here we always stand up straight. Round here something radiates. Maria came from Nashville with a suitcase in her hand. She said she'd like to meet a boy who looks like Elvis. And she walks along the edge of where the ocean meets the land, just like she's walking on a wire in the circus. And she parks her car outside of my house and takes her clothes off and says she's close to understanding Jesus. And I know she's more than just a little misunderstood. She has trouble acting normal when she's nervous. Round here, we're carving out our names. Round here, we all look the same. Round here we talk just like lions, but we sacrifice like lambs. Round here, she's slipping through my hands. She says it's only in my head. She says, I know it's only in my head. But the girl on the car in the parking lot says, man, you should try to take a shot. But can't you see my walls are crumbling? And she looks up at the building, says she's thinking of jumping. She says she's tired of life. She must be tired of something round here. She's always on my mind. Round here, hey man, we got lots of time. And round here, we're never sent to bed early, and nobody makes us wait. Round here, we stay up very, very late. But you catch me if I'm falling, catch me if I'm falling down on you. I can't see nothing, nothing ground here.
Tell where my head was at when you found me. Me and you went to hell and back just to find peace. Man, I thought I had everything, I was lonely. Now you're my everything, I was lonely. I missed a lot of love with a lot of drugs, then I found you. She liked petty crime, she had green eyes like Mountain Dew. And where she go, I'll never know, her friends bounce to. I guess it's their loss, cause they'll never know what we'll amount to. And would you be my light, be my yellow? PYT walking down Portobello, put a smile on his face at the end of the day. MDMA helped us fly away. Who'd have known you would save my life? Who'd have known you would fly my kite? Could you tell, could you tell? Could you tell? Could you tell where my head was at when you found me? Me and you went to hell and back just to find peace. Man, I thought I had everything, I was lonely. Now you're my everything, I was lonely. Yeah. call my phone just to check if I was blessed, cause he knew I was low. Head gone, rolling off the throne. I remember we was in the park. Late night, made love on the grass. Got my head in the clouds, counting all my stars. In my ear said the world was ours. Went to hell and back just to heal my wounds, cause it gets like that. Wrong side of the moon, no Tutankhamun. You're my Cleopatra. No side thing, don't need a backer. Need a
Good morning, all. We'll be starting shortly. However, tea is served out there. We know it's a cold morning, so tea and coffee just out there. Thank you.
real one, don't need an actor. A lost one's fake, think you want a BAFTA. Come and be my girl. Yeah. Could you tell where my head was at when you found me? Me and you went to hell and back just to find peace. And I thought I had everything, I was lonely. Now you're my everything, I was lonely. Yeah.
I gave you my whole heart. I think I love you still, but you tore me apart. You just can't get your fill. I've always kept it in. I think I let it out. I used to be so dependent. Don't need nobody now. Cause you're breaking my heart into itty bitty pieces. Did right from the start, but my itty bitty feelings get fucking me up, fucking me up, fucking me up. Stuff for love. Funny how you're so possessive. Funny how we learn our lessons. Ooh, tell me now what's your excuse? Did you trip on someone new? Just fell into the arms. Oh, that's nice. What a story so precise. See, do you like you ice? You'll never have a heart. You'll only have a slice. Cause you're breaking my heart into itty bitty pieces. Knew right from the start, but my itty bitty feelings can fucking me up, fucking me up, fucking me up. Stuff for love. You're breaking my heart into itty bitty pieces. Knew right from the start, but my itty bitty feelings can fucking me up, fucking me up, fucking me up. Stuff for love.
She's wearing an old dress, walking it out, waiting for someone to turn her around. But she won't believe you when you fall down on your knees. She fell asleep, listening to my friends, talking on and on about how the world ends. Then she wakes up and climbs in my front seat. And she said, don't you wait to try it. Are you scared to find it? scared to start? Let's lay in the dead grass, stare at the stars. Run away, you live out of cars and bars. Let's just leave here, 'cause there's nothing left to see. And if that's wrong, let's make it right. And if you leave, just give me one more night, 'cause there's no one that you'll find that's quite like me. And she said, don't you wait to try it. Are you scared to find it? And do you want to take my broken heart? Are you scared to start? You don't need a paycheck, don't need the rent. You can't take it all, 'cause it's already spent. We can burn out just as long as we burn bright. And she said, don't you wait to try it. Are you scared to find it? And do you want to take my broken heart? Will you ever heal from all these scars? And did you ever take it all so far? Are you scared to start?
I had a vision last night, not diving in Monterey. That water on my skin, it washed my shame away. And I've been sipping on poison, even on the days I taste it. Running to the same wall, all because I just can't face it. And I'm tired of running from the conversations, screaming in the silence all alone. And I miss the innocence that it has taken. Oh, I'm frustrated, I can't take it, but I'll fake it, then I'll hate myself again. I had a vision last night, horses on the granite plains. That sound of freedom stampeding, why can't I feel the same? And I've been sleeping wide awake, slow dancing around the cracks in the floorboards, fighting myself while lying in the bed I made and can't ignore. And I'm tired of running from the conversation, screaming take it, but I'll fake it, then I'll hate myself. I'm bleeding, I can't breathe it, and I'm tearing at the seams. Oh, I'm so scared that I won't make it out. I'll let you down and I'll hate myself again.
Ceilings, plaster. Can't you just make it move faster? Lovely to be sitting here with you. You're kinda cute, but it's raining harder. My shoes are now full of water. Lovely to be rained on with you. It's kinda cute, but it's so short. Then you're driving me home, and I don't wanna leave, but I have to go. You kiss me in your car, and it feels like the start of a movie I've seen before. Bed sheets, no clothes. Touch me like nobody else does. Lovely to just lay here with you. You're kinda cute, and I would say all of this, but I don't wanna ruin the moment. Lovely to sit between comfort and chaos. But it's over, then you're driving me home, and it kinda comes out as I get up to go. You kiss me in your car, and it feels like the start of a movie I've seen before. But it's not real, and you don't exist, and I can't recall the last time I was kissed. It hits me in the car, and it feels like the end of a movie I've seen before. The birds have left the trees, the light pours onto me. I could feel you lying there all on your own. We got here the hard way, all those words that we exchange. Is it any wonder things get wrong? 'Cause in my heart and in my hand, I'll never take back the things I stand so high on both. I feel it coming down, she said, in my heart and in my head. Tell me why this has to end. Oh no, oh no. I can't save us, no, I flood. The hurt just leaves me scared, losing everything I've ever known. It's all become too much. Maybe I'm not built for love. If I knew that I could reach you, I would go. It's in my heart and in my head. You can't take back the things you said. So high on both, I feel it coming down. She said, in my heart and in my head. Tell me why this has to end. Oh no, oh no. I can't save us. My Atlantis we fall. We build this on shaky ground. I can't save us. My Atlantis, oh no. We build it up to pull it down. Yeah, we build it up and we build it up. Yeah, we build it up to pull it down. And we build it up and we build it up. And we build it up to pull it down. I can't save us. My Atlantis we fall. We build this town on shaky ground. I can't save us. My Atlantis, oh no. We build it up to pull it down. I don't speak too much, so you can't help but wonder if I'm still in love. Dirty hands from all your trauma, I'm digging up. 50 states away, but honey, I'm thinking of you. And ooh, we're hanging on by threads, and I can't hold it any harder on my end. No. Ooh, I'm something to regret, but without you, what am I? Oh, Gemini, please remember my name. Remember my name. Remember my name. Don't hesitate to call me up and curse me out. Self-medicate till I start hearing voices and I levitate and realize they aren't yours. Now I'm devastated. Yep. And ooh, we're hanging on by threads, and I can't hold it any harder in my head. No. Ooh, I'm something to regret, but without you, what am I? Oh, Gemini, please remember my name. Remember my name. Remember my name. I remember your face from time to time. I remember the days, the cheap red wine. I remember those days I caught you mine, caught you mine, caught you mine. I remember your face from time to time. I remember that days, the cheap red wine. I remember those days I caught you mine, caught you mine,
took me unaware, but I can't say I wasn't warm. Like a man who builds no shelter when he sees a coming storm. So maybe I deserve to be this kind of ripped apart. You showed me knives for hands, and I still let you hold my heart. Sometimes love is willfully blind. You see muddy water and you call it wine. We know the score, we see the signs, but sometimes love is willfully blind. Your love was like a fire, and I stoked it like a fool. Girl, you were a liar and I was playing by the rules. I wonder when I'll trust again. You will never see the pain I locked away from what you did to me. Sometimes love is willfully blind. You see muddy water and you call it wine. We know the score, we see the signs, but sometimes love is willfully blind. I'm tired of the nights, feel like I'm losing my mind in the light, that I don't love you. I still love you. Oh, sometimes love is willfully blind. You see muddy water and you call it wine. We know the score, we've seen all the signs, but sometimes love is willfully blind. Sometimes love is willfully blind.
Good morning, all. Good morning. Well, I'm trying that we start at 9:30 exactly. Unfortunately, I'm 2 minutes behind time on that. Um, sorry, I don't know. Sophia, could you help me if there are people out there so they could just come in and settle, please? Settle down. Thank you. Sorry, apologies. You just give us 2 more minutes for everyone to settle. Then we'll start at 9:35 sharp. Thank you. So, thank you all very much. Good morning once again. Like I said, trying to start just on time, 9:35. And would like to welcome you to the dialogue on the National Agenda for Democracy Strengthening. And to commence the event, I would like to call on the chairman of the steering committee, the PSDF, the Private Sector Development for Democracy Forum, the chairman of the steering committee, Mr. Yemi Kande Johnson, SAN, to give the welcome remarks.
Hi there. Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, distinguished guests, members of the Private Sector Development and Democracy Forum, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Steering Committee of the Private Sector Development for Democracy Forum, PSDF, it is my honor to welcome you all to this important dialogue on the national agenda for democratic strengthening. Let me begin by acknowledging our partners, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA, membership of PSDF, and Digits Law for co-hosting this event, and to thank everyone for making time to join us today. PSDF was established as a platform for collaboration amongst organizations and institutions representing the private sector, think tanks, civil society, academia, and the media, with a shared conviction that democracy and economic prosperity are interlinked. Our work is guided by a simple but powerful belief that a strong democracy built on respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law provides the enabling environment for innovation, fair competition, and inclusive growth. Through research, dialogue, and advocacy, the Forum aims to bridge the gap between governance and enterprise, ensuring that the private sector not only benefits from democracy, but also actively contributes to strengthening it. We recognize that sustainable business environments do not exist in isolation from transparent, accountable institutions, predictable laws, efficient courts, and integrity in governance. They form the bedrock of investor confidence, citizens' trust, and national stability. To advance this vision, the PSDF has developed the National Agenda for Democratic Strengthening, NADS, a comprehensive document that examines Nigeria's current democratic and governance landscape to identify potential inflection points and those reforms that will have a catalytic effect towards building a more stable, fair, and equitable democratic nation, while emphasizing the role of private sector organizations, civil society, and academia. The NADS identifies 4 priority areas that are critical to consolidating democracy, including strengthening specific democratic institutions, reinforcing the independence, transparency, and accountability of the judiciary, the press, the electoral institution, and the anti-corruption agencies to ensure democratic integrity. To strategic technical capacity development and civic education, closing the skills and knowledge gaps in critical government institutions to keep up with advancements in sophistication of governance and resource management, as well as increasing understanding of civic responsibility among citizens. This is key to fostering a participatory and well-informed democratic culture. Promoting private sector accountability, transparency, and responsibility to curb corruption, enhancing the private sector's commitment to addressing systemic corruption, and promoting accountability in commercial transactions and private to public transactions, and interactions through preventive measures, institutional reforms, and enforcement of ethical standards. Fourthly, advocating for land tenure reforms to address arbitrary use and abuse of powers, reforming land governance to address inequities, improve economic opportunities, and reduce conflict. The NADS is a call to action for all stakeholders to play their part in shaping a more democratic, accountable, and prosperous Nigeria. Today's dialogue focuses on priority area number 1 of the NADS, strengthening specific democratic agencies, the judiciary, media, electoral bodies, and accountability agencies, spotlighting judicial reforms and innovation. We're doing this because we know that an independent, efficient, and transparent judiciary is the anchor of democracy, human rights, and economic stability. Without a credible rule of law, democracy becomes fragile. Businesses lose confidence, citizens lose trust, and justice becomes the privilege of the few rather than the right of all. Strengthening the judiciary is therefore not just a legal reform agenda, it is an economic imperative. Investors thrive where contracts are enforceable, where corruption is punished, and where justice is timely. A fair and efficient judicial system gives businesses the confidence to invest, to innovate, and to expand. This dialogue also recognizes that strengthening the judiciary in the 21st century requires innovation. Technology can and will play a transformative role, from digital case management and e-filing systems to data-driven performance tracking and online access to justice. That is why the collaboration with Digits Law, a legal innovation and technology firm, is so vital. It represents the convergence of legal reform and digital innovation, two drivers of national transformation. Today, we will also introduce the Rule of Law Scorecard, an evidence-based framework for being developed under the Private Sector Development for Democracy Forum, PSDF, to assess and track Nigeria's progress in strengthening the rule of law and democratic governance. As we begin today's dialogue, we should remember that a just society is not built by courts alone. It is built by a shared culture of integrity, accountability, and respect for the rule of law. We should leave this dialogue today with renewed commitment, not only to identify solutions, but to collaborate across sectors to make them real. Our conversation today should inspire concrete actions that will strengthen our institutions, rebuild public trust, and restore Nigeria's promise as both a democratic and economically resilient nation. On behalf of PSDF Steering Committee, I welcome you all and wish us fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think we have started the day on very high notes. Now, we would be going straight to the keynote speech. And I'm sure for a lot of people who are here in the legal space, our keynote speaker is known to most people. I would like to invite Professor Bankole Shodikbo, SAN, who is a senior partner at Geo Shodikbo and Co. He was also the Dean of Law, yes, I think at Babcock University, yes. So he would be speaking on reimagining justice in the digital era, innovation as a catalyst for judicial efficiency and public trust. Please let's welcome him with a round.
Thank you very much. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a big honor to be invited to speak today. The last speaker, the convener, is a brother of mine, elder brother actually, even though he tries to look younger. And we go way back. And this is an important issue because I believe that the judiciary is and the legal system is a pivot on which everything revolves. So for instance, when I was starting my PhD about 35 years ago in University of London, I think it was £700 was what all students were entitled to at that time. By the time I finished 3 years later, in 95, it became maybe £2,000 for undergrads. But they didn't give me any money because I was a foreign student. Now, why were the banks able to give students money? Because if you don't pay, easily they go after you. And there's nothing like technicality of law and all those things, you know. Landlords, tenants, they don't want to pay, they say, please sue me, take me to court. Because they know that they can stay there for years. If we can correct this, okay. Oh, no, I don't know. I wonder.
Apologies. I made a massive error, and I would like to apologize to everyone, especially Professor Shodikbo, because the DG of NASIMA, who's one of our partners, as well as a member of the PSDF, one of the co-hosts, is actually meant to take an opening remarks. Sir, please, apologies from my end, please. So I would like to invite Mr. Shola Obadimo, who is the DG of NASIMA, to come for his remarks. Apologies to everyone. Mr. Chairman, please forgive me, as well as our keynote speaker, sir. Please. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Joy. Actually, let me add my voice to also apologize to Prof. Ideally, I felt that those of us that are not, that do not have competencies in law should speak before professionals deal with the issue, because if professionals should speak first, those of us that are laymen will now, what are we going to say again? So it's better we say our bit and then listen attentively to the professional presentation. So again, apologies to Prof and everyone. As introduced, I am Shola Obadimo, Director General at NASIMA. It's a long name, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture. I don't know why they decided to give it that long name. Those who started forming Chambers of Commerce in Europe and elsewhere, they will just say London Chamber of Commerce, and that is it. You know, I don't know why we have such a long name. Everything is captured under commerce anyway, so anyway. So it's actually a privilege for me to be here to address this important roundtable on strengthening the judiciary and the rule of law for a resilient democracy, convened under the aegis of the Private Sector Development for Democracy Forum, PSDDF, which is basically a joint initiative of CIPE, that is Center for International Private Enterprise, and the ABC, American Business Council. This incidentally is a subject that sits at the very heart of sustainable economic transformation, being the consideration of the nexus between justice, the rule of law, and private sector development and growth. I therefore once again appreciate and commend both CIPE and ABC for organizing this timely roundtable. We are just supporting. It's your concept. Every thriving economy is built not merely on natural resources or capital investments, but on the predictability, fairness, and integrity of its legal and regulatory systems. Where justice is slow, uncertain, or compromised, business confidence declines. But where justice is efficient, impartial, accessible, and fair, enterprise can only flourish. Across Africa, and indeed around the world, evidence shows that economies that strengthen the rule of law also attract greater investment. The World Bank's Doing Business indicators consistently rank countries with transparent judicial processes among those with the highest inflows of FDI, foreign direct investments. In Nigeria, for instance, the private sector contributes over 80% of our GDP and provides nearly 90% of jobs, formally or informally. Yet, it continues to operate within an environment where enforcement of contracts, protection of property rights, and dispute resolution remains major constraints. The World Justice Project Rule of Law Index 2024 ranks Nigeria 118th out of 142 countries, therefore reflecting persistent challenges in civil justice, regulatory enforcement, and corruption control. These are not just numbers. They are realities that shape the daily experience of our entrepreneurs and businesses generally, the true drivers of our national economy. We must therefore approach justice reforms not as an abstract legal exercise, but as an economic necessity. A predictable and transparent justice system lowers transaction costs, it enhances credit confidence, and it ensures that agreements, the very building blocks of commerce, are respected. Indeed, the private sector depends on the rule of law to protect intellectual property rights and investment rights. It guarantees fair competition and transparent regulatory frameworks and resolve disputes swiftly through courts or alternative mechanisms, such as arbitration or mediation. Encouragingly, Nigeria has begun to make notable strides in this regard. The Administration of Criminal Justice Act, the Companies and Allied Matters Act, 2020, and the strengthening of key institutions such as the Corporate Affairs Commission, the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, and the Nigerian Export Promotion Council are possible developments. In addition, the expansion of multi-door courthouses and arbitration centers in Lagos and Abuja and several other states demonstrates growing recognition that justice delivery and economic growth are intertwined. However, the journey ahead demands deeper institutional commitments. We must continue to drive judicial reforms that promote digital case management, time-bound adjudication of commercial disputes, and the establishment of specialized commercial divisions in our courts. Capacity building for judges, lawyers, and business players is equally vital to ensure that all understand the economic implications of delayed, of inconsistent, or unfair justice. Beyond the courtroom, justice must also find expression in public policy, in transparent procurement systems, fair taxation, predictable regulation, and the sanctity of contracts. When government actions are consistent with the rule of law, businesses plan better, they invest more confidently, and they expand on a more sustainable note. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we look towards the common decade, let us remember that justice is not only a moral virtue, it is also a strategic advantage. Strengthening the rule of law is the surest route to restoring investor confidence, unlocking innovation, and ensuring that our growth is both inclusive and sustainable. Let us therefore work together, policymakers, the judiciary, the bar, and the private sector inclusive, to build a justice system that is not only fair but functional, not only independent but efficient, and above all, one that truly enables enterprises to thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for pleading on my behalf to Prof. And my chairman. So I would like to invite again our keynote speaker. He has started it, so he would actually need no further introduction, but it's good for me to basically state a lot about him. I think, like most people know, he is a professor of law, like I said, the former dean of law at Babcock University and a senior advocate of Nigeria. So, Prof, apologies again, and thank you for forgiving me.
No problem, no problem. I'm a teacher, so anything happens in the classroom. Interestingly, thank you, Mr. DG. I was joking with my learning brother of the silk, Mr. Kanye Johnson, that the DG reminded me that Nigeria has improved from 123 in the index to 124. Is that an improvement? Is a decline? But, you know, things are bad, but in fact, things are very bad, but there are some good things that are happening, and we must not forget that. I tell people, give a dog a bad name is the story of Nigeria, and one of the reasons is because we don't do enough analysis as to what is happening around us to realize that there are some improvements here and there. I mean, the number of car thefts or break-ins in London and Joburg is higher than Lagos. You may not realize it, but we don't hear about it. We don't hear about the good things, and we need to stress some of the good things. The DG did mention some of the good things, new laws, improvements in the salary of judges, for instance. So some good things are happening. And so it's on that note, I want to thank the conveners, the organizers for inviting me to speak on this dialogue. The rule of law and an independent judiciary are fundamental to any democracy. They are the pillars on which a democracy thrives. And so independent judges, professional judges who can give fair and impartial decisions are so important. The question then is, how do we move forward? The chair of this occasion, the convener, comes from a family of lawyers. His father was the chief justice of, chief judge of Lagos. And his brother is also a retired judge of the High Court of Lagos. Now, one of the things people don't realize, stakeholders, lawyers, and public, is that judges are human beings. But he knows that. And because they are human beings, we need to realize that we need to understand them and see how we can help them, because they do need help. One of the things that many of us have failed, particularly the bar, is that we don't engage the bench sufficiently. We don't spend enough time, and then we assume that because they are judges, they know what to do. So we just make suggestions to them. They are trained to be judges. They are not trained to be administrators. You know, some of us need to write the rules and bring the people to help them, because they are trained to just judge, not to be administrators. So I asked a few questions, which I highlighted a number of things which I think we need to discuss. That we haven't accepted that the rule of law underpins democracy, economic competitiveness, and institutional stability. We need to ask ourselves, how can the judiciary aid in consolidating democracy? If a bad judgment comes as a result of elections, there can be civil disturbance, disobedience, and so on. What practical reforms can we introduce to enhance judicial independence? For instance, the judges that may not be managing things so well, if they are now given all the money, do you expect that because you have judicial financial independence, everything is just going to be all right? There may be more trouble because you have not been handling that kind of money. We are saying they must handle all their money. What are the private sector perspectives? We don't have confidence. Foreigners don't have confidence. But I was sharing with some folks recently to say that we did a study that suggests that looking at 50 years of cases at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court dealing with arbitration in Nigeria, and our study suggested that Nigerian courts enforce arbitral clauses and arbitral awards against federal government and state government agencies. That was very revealing, because the people I was talking to say, can that be true? That's not what we think. But that is what the statistics show. So I think Digis Law and people like that, it will be important to interrogate and find out what exactly is position, because we don't do much with data in Nigeria, and we need to. What is the perception, of the scorecards? I mentioned that we are now number 124 from 123. Slight, it depends how you look at it, whether it's an improvement or not. And then, is the judiciary open to collaboration? And I want to suggest, and I will show in a few minutes, that surprisingly, the Nigerian judiciary is open to collaboration. The Nigerian judiciary is open to dialogue. Now, if you, the Lagos State Bar, Nigerian Bar Association, Lagos, whether Ikeja and so on, when they organize their programs, you don't see judges there. And you wonder why the judges are not there. And that's because there's this antagonistic culture between the bar and the bench. Meanwhile, there should be collaboration. And without, if they perceive that you are inviting them to just criticize them, they will not come for your program, and they will not listen to what you are sharing with them. So Nigerians, the National Rule of Law scorecard does not score us very well. But in answering these questions, I thought I should highlight a number of things. One is, what's the attitude of judges? What's the attitude of judiciary to issues of innovation and change? And I want to suggest that they are ready to embrace change, and I'll demonstrate that. What is the body language of Nigerian judiciary? The body language, I'll use the statements of 3 Chief Justices of Nigeria in recent times, since 2012, to highlight and suggest what I think they are saying to us. In 2012, there was a Nigerian Judiciary Information Technology Policy document issued by the judiciary. The DG of NASIMA did highlight the importance of policies. Now, in 2012, the judiciary, with this mission, they said that their mission is to fully integrate ICT into the court system. If they say that, and we're talking of innovation, it means that they are ready to embrace innovation. In fact, the then CJN, Dahiru Mustafa, said, his lordship, that an effective justice system is based on 4 principles: independence, transparency, accountability, and efficiency. And he went on to say that this policy document will be taken into account prior to the implementation of any information technology project the judiciary in the judiciary, and as many of the issues will require due consideration, and these have been adequately captured in this document. To fully satisfy the yearnings of Nigerians for speedy and quality justice and justify the confidence of the public in the judiciary, the use of IT can no longer be discretionary, it must be the norm. That's their policy statement. And they say this drives everything. Reinforcing this 12 years later, and 10 years later, Justice Ariwola, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, said that the path to efficient and effective justice delivery in Nigeria lies in our ability, that's the ability of the judges, to continuously improve our justice sector with the use of ICT tools. So they are telling you, we are ready, but we need help. It's like a lady who is ripe and she's available to be toasted. You know, she's marriageable, and they are giving you hints. But some of us, we wink in the dark, and we say they are not seeing us. They cannot see us. That policy statement is called JIPTO. It was published 13 years ago, 2012. But you can imagine something published 2012 is still their policy statement in 2025. If I ask as a teacher, do you think it will meet the needs of 2025? As a teacher, answer me. Otherwise, I'll fail you. Okay. So I then suggest that they need to review this. And in reviewing it, the current CJN, Justice Kekere Ekun, gave a very remarkable, thought-provoking lecture earlier this year at UNILAG on justice in the digital age, leveraging technology for an efficient and accessible judiciary in Nigeria. And I want to just refer to some of the things she said. So you see that they are ready for the collaboration. She said, justice is not merely blind. It is also painfully slow and occasionally unresponsive to the realities and deaf to the cries of the people. For some others, justice evokes both hope and frustration, depending on how it touches the core of their identities and values, from electoral contest to chieftaincy and land. The very perceptions, some hopeful, others disillusioned, do not invalidate each other. Rather, they reveal the layered and sometimes contradictory experience of justice in Nigeria. She continued that the digital age presents a timely and transformative opportunity. The world is witnessing a technology revolution that is reshaping how we live and work. That questions around data protection, intellectual property are challenging, but that the ability of the Nigerian judiciary to successfully adopt and implement technology will depend in large part on the strength of the national digital ecosystem. We are part of the ecosystem. We should not just be blaming them and blaming them. The ecosystem must be such that if it is viral, then it will affect them. So that it will require investment in infrastructure. About 3-4 years ago, I was opportune to visit with, I think it was PwC and a couple of others. It was Minister Lai Mohammed that took us to see this central bank governor to discuss issues concerning the creative industries. And in the middle of the discussions, the central bank governor at that time said, I'm going to give $200 million for the creative industries because I see the potential. Now, have we ever imagined how much did central bank put down to bail out Skybank or to bail out all the banks because they see the importance of the banks? But how much has the government really spent to bail out the judiciary? Because they need bailing out. You know, a lot of investments. The policy statement that of 2012 that I've shared from was developed partly from sponsorship of a development partner. So I'm calling on development partners and those of us who have access to them that if we make provision and approach them, the judiciary will be very, very open. They need to see, for instance, that in small, go to Ethiopia, and you see that they've developed with their own language, computer, you get to the high court or any court anywhere in the country, any litigant, any party will be able to just punt information there and find out about his case anywhere in the country. That's Ethiopia. Go to Rwanda, you see similar things. So do you think that could have happened without development partners, without, it's not just government money, you know. So you and I may need to play a role. And those of us who have money like Mr. Candy Johnson, SAN. Now the fact is that the courts have made changes. Rules have been changed to accommodate things. So it's now possible to serve electronically. Yesterday, the Federal High Court had a session to deal with case management. And so they were doing training for stakeholders. So to be able to do this, there must be money. Fortunately, one area of expertise in Africa, give it to the Yahoo boys. We compete with the world when it comes to ICT. You know, and that's what we need to encourage to see so that all these changes can be made. And there's so many tools. I mean, is it legal, law, pavilion, Legalpedia? In fact, as I'm saying this, I just remembered a case where I was telling Mr. Yemi Johnson some 10, 12 years ago when there was a case by Legalpedia, but I won't tell you the details of what I was discussing with him. You know, but, you know, there are issues of challenge of privacy law, intellectual property law. In that case, the question was federal laws of the federation, do they have copyright? Because Odade Butterworth had done laws of the federation. And the question, some young chaps just reproduced with software. And the question is that an infringement? And around the same time, I remember the then CJ of the Federal High Court telling me that, "Hey, Shodibo, my rules of court, they are selling it without my permission, you know." And today, the new copyright law says there's no copyright in statutes, even though I told them that doesn't make sense. But, you know, so there are issues like that. There are issues of privacy law. There should somebody be able to go to the courts and pinch and read my files. You know, is a public document. If my file is public document, then your father's will may become public document. I think I was asked to speak for 20 minutes, and I think it's probably okay. 8 minutes? Wow, maybe I'll finish saying everything I wanted to say. Now, one of the challenges, I think, because I did say at the end that I want to throw a few challenges, is how can we make the government realize the importance of the judiciary, the legal system? A couple of days ago, I was at a function, and I was saying that, look, the rule that if a case is before a judge and the judge retires, or the judge is transferred, or the judge dies, or a judge is elevated to another court, that case has to start all over again. And this rule had been on for years. And the question is it ICT that will help? It may help, but the argument is that if this rule, that you need to start again because a new judge needs to see the demeanor of the parties and so on and so forth. But with ICT, can you not see the demeanor? If it's recorded and so on, so that excuse is no longer valid. And then most importantly, have we tried to cost and find out how many of these cases have started all over again? I've only been a plaintiff in 2 cases, and in one of them, we started 2018, and we've started all over again before 3 judges. You know, it's like I'm not happy that those judges were elevated. You know, this one has been elevated. It's like, oh no, why did you elevate him, God? You know, so, and I've been in the witness box, like, you understand? And somebody enjoying firing me questions. So maybe because some of us we are not stakeholders in the sense that we are not parties. We need to understand, make also judges understand some of the problems. Because some of the judges never sat with any client to know that this is Friday. If my ship is not arrested by Monday, the implications, they don't. Because they've never practiced as lawyers. And we expect them to fully understand. You know, I've enjoyed relating with some of the judges, and I'll cite a couple. Justice Belgore, when he was the chief judge of the Federal High Court, when I was doing my PhD, whenever I came into London, he would call me and take me out to dinner. He wrote the caveat against arrest rules, and I said to him, "Sir, my lord, these rules," because every time he came, we would discuss a lot of the cases by his brother judges. Some I will criticize and so on. But in terms of language of criticism, many of us, we don't know how to talk. You know, you want to talk to a judge or his brother judge, and you are talking to him as if he didn't go to school. Even if he's wrong, he will not accept it. So I had this debate with him that the implication of the caveat against arrest could make the owner of a ship to place an insurance kind of bond that all my ships if there is an arrest and I have already filed a caveat against arrest, you will not arrest my ship. And he said to me, no, I drafted the rules. Bankole, that's not what I had in mind. I said, my Lord, it's not what you had in mind. The rule of interpretation is, does it accommodate that? And he said, and then commercially, why would a ship owner want to do that? I said, my Lord, leave the commercially to me and the lawyers. But this is my position that this can enable you to do this. He said, no. This is your pages if troubling you. 3 months later, he called me. He said, Bankole, I've read this thing again. I think you are right, you know. And what I will do is I will do this in terms of implementing. And that showed me that it is possible to engage them and push them, and there can be change. The CJN has said, this is what I want to do. I want to challenge the partners, the conveners, to engage the CJN, to engage the NJC, because they will be open, particularly if you can bring a funder, if you can bring the technology people, they will be open. And I believe that Nigeria is going to be great. Professor, is it Mulumba or Lulumba, whatever his name, said that Africa will not realize its potential until Nigeria gets it right. And I believe that there's hope for this country, and we can get it right. Let me stop on that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very insightful keynotes. While I feel happy, I also feel sad because you've just given Lola ideas of what the next step we'll be looking at for this project. Because I can just imagine, Mrs. Lola Adekoya, she's the Regional Hub Director for SIPE, which is Center for International Private Enterprise, one of the conveners of the PSDF. So talk about engaging. I say I can just imagine Mrs. Adekoya, she'll just be sending me a message. Joy, next thing we should do, think about this. So Prof, thank you for that insightful one, but I just know that my work has become a lot more with those things you have put forward now. We're moving right, as in well with time, and now we've been speaking about technology. So we are now going to use technology, to go virtual. And to join us, we'll be having a special address by Chief Tony Idigbe, SAN, who's the senior partner, Punuka Attorneys and Solicitors. And I'm sure that in this space, he's very well known. So, sir, we'll be handing over to you right now for your special address. Thank you. Sorry, sir, can you hear us? He's unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Okay, I thank the conveners of this timely dialogue for inviting me to speak and share my thoughts on the theme. I would have been there in person, but I had to return to Toronto to attend the IBA annual conference, which is holding here. I will speak on the subtopic, how digital tools can strengthen the rule of law. And I will start by adopting my previous statement on rule of law in another paper I delivered to the Center for Civic Leadership. There, I tried to say that the rule of law presupposes that every person, including the government, is subject to the laws of the land. In other words, the government of the country is a government of laws and not of men or women. Thus, by rule of law, all government action must comply with the law, including the Constitution. And the rule of law is broader than constitutionalism, which implies that all government action must also comply with the Constitution. And I've tried to argue that Nigeria is a constitutional democracy with constitutional supremacy. And you see that in Section 1 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which provides that the Constitution is supreme, etc. Also, the role of upholding the rule of law and constitutionalism and constitutional supremacy is given to the courts by virtue of Section 6 subsection 6B of the Constitution, which provides that the judicial powers shall be vested in the judiciary to determine any matters between persons or between government and authority and persons in Nigeria, or any issue as to their obligations. However, in playing the role, the courts recognize that legislative power is vested in the National Assembly by virtue of Section 4 of the Constitution, and respect for legislative supremacy in the area of authority, which is lawmaking. So I've also argued that, according to Dicey, speaking on the rule of law, no one should suffer except for a distinct breach of law, and citizens alike are subject to the general law of the land and must be administered by the ordinary court. And that's the scheme we see in Section 6 of Section 6 of the Constitution that I referred to earlier. Democracy, on the other hand, is not defined under the Constitution. It's not defined under the Nigerian Constitution, and many people don't seem to realize this point. Because I argue that it is one of the unwritten values and principles that underpin our Constitution and is captured by the preamble of the Constitution, which provides that, and to provide a Constitution for the purpose of promoting the good government and welfare of all persons in our country, on the principles of freedom, equality, and justice, and for the purpose of consolidating the unity of our people. So, however, to flesh up democracy, as it were, those unwritten values of democracy, the Constitution created the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and provided for separation of powers and for elections to the executive and legislative arms of government. In line with Montesquieu's thoughts about democracy, it also, in addition, created many amorphous bodies and administrative institutions to enable the government to provide for the welfare and well-being of Nigerians. Some of those institutions include, for instance, the National Judicial Council, which, though it is a federal body, is involved in the appointment of state high court judges. It's also, if you look at the National Judicial Council, it's listed under the executive arm of the executive chapter of the Constitution, even though it's completely dominated by judges and headed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who are part of the judicial arm. So it's a sort of amorphous body that straddles the separation of powers and checks and balances. So there are many administrative institutions created by the Constitution and many more by the National Assembly. So there is a tension between rule of law and separation of powers. Honorable Dempster Doyle of the Isle of Man Court of Justice discussed this tension between the rule of law and separation of powers. And he argues that the ability to call to account directly or indirectly and to hold anybody in public office to ridicule is a significant step towards democracy. But applying this method of accountability to the judiciary may undermine the effectiveness of separation of powers within the rule of law, which itself is a mainstay of democracy. He then gives 10 tips for maintaining the separation of powers as a bulwark of democracy and rule of law as its mainstay. Now, of the 10 tips, perhaps the most relevant is the 10th, which provides, and I quote, ensure that those who provide administrative support to the judiciary are independent. So what are the challenges of the rule of law as we have seen it? Of course, courts play an invaluable role in promoting social and economic development by preserving the rule of law and protecting human rights. However, many judicial systems are beset with problems which affect their ability to dispense justice effectively. This deficiency drives reform, a reflectivity that returns the system to equilibrium. So, delay, congestion, and cost are the most pressing and prevalent problems of judicial systems. And the other one is uncertainty of outcomes due to fragmented processes. And in Nigeria, conflicting decisions also contribute to different outcomes for users of the judicial system. And I think the convener, made some references to the need for transparency and consistency in any system. And countries like Singapore have long grappled with and overcome such challenges using wide-ranging reforms. Nigeria's judiciary is unrelentingly blighted, notwithstanding a constitutional guarantee of speedy trial within a reasonable time. Attempts at reform resulted in the enactment of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act in 2015. It introduced innovations aimed at raising the standards and efficiency of criminal justice administration, the speedy dispensation of justice, day-to-day hearing, and protection of rights and interests of suspects, defendants, victims, among others. Delay in criminal cases can be reduced and avoided through active court management of the pace of litigation. Now, I refer to Stillman and Griller, who argue that case flow management, not formal court procedure or structures, is responsible for court delays. And Church, Carlson et al. Assert that some of the informal elements of criminal justice system which can cause delay include the size of the court, the case load, the backlog, the trial and settlement activities, the whole process of charging, say, for instance, defendants to court. There's also other issues they mention, the calendaring system, the case management practices, behavioral issues such as overworked or lazy judges, procrastinating prosecutors, weak or ill-prepared investigation of cases, procrastinating defense counsel, culture of collaboration or no collaboration or lack thereof between judges and defense and prosecution lawyers, police witnesses, non-cooperative attitude of victims or witnesses, prison dispatch services, and inefficiency. If the Black Maria does not come, the case does not go on, for instance. They found that informal elements, relationships, norms, and incentives play a greater role in the disposition of criminal cases than formal elements, such as statutes, the rules, or the policies. So cases of delay must be addressed if the rule of law is to have any meaning. I mean, clearly, everything I have said, although the research was on criminal justice, but it's applicable to civil justice as well. And the maxim is justice delayed is justice denied. So, and then, a lot of things happened. COVID has had a lot of impact because before COVID, there were certain things we can talk about, that there was inadequate infrastructure, unreliable power, internet access, etc. These were limitations that were there. But when COVID happened, it helped us to sort of see opportunities like remote hearing and many of all these other things that are that came out as a result of COVID. And so the challenges have changed since then. And there's a Harvard Business School report that looked at, post-COVID, what are the new concerns of most businesses? They look at how do they ensure that there's no business interruption, as has happened with COVID. They spend 70% of their time on that, an issue of risk management, and only 30% of their time is used on the financial health of the organization, etc. So the question is the judiciary different? The same issue arises in terms of the judiciary, just to ensure that there's no business disruption, they are managing the risk, they are delivering justice to the people, etc. So, and another thing that has happened is that post-COVID, the growth of digital economy is now on an irreversible trajectory. So, although there are two views of the possibility of the impact of COVID, some say that the earlier limitations that we were suffering in Africa will continue. But some other people argue that it's an opportunity. The pandemic is now an opportunity for leapfrogging. And leapfrogging is the process of reducing the time and space between two variables. Is it possible for us to leapfrog? A good example of leapfrogging that has occurred in Nigeria is in the telecom sector, where we use GSM technology to leapfrog Nigeria from 400,000 landlines to over 200 million telephone lines in 10 years. So, is this possible in the public sector to have court technology reform? We can easily classify court technology into four categories based on either the technology or the organizational function. The first category comprises basic computer technologies readily available off-the-shelf products. And these will be the hardware and software tools that facilitate the creation, collection, storage, and dissemination of digital information necessary for everyday office tasks, such as your laptop or your desktop computers. The second category comprises tools that support the court's administrative staff, including internet access, automated registries, case management systems. The third category comprises technologies that support judges' activities, including digital tools such as electronic statutes, law reports, virtual libraries, forums, training platforms, sentencing support systems. And the fourth category includes technologies integrated into the courtroom, such as e-filing, computer-assisted transcriptions, document display systems, video conferencing, digital evidence management, and online dispute resolution. Now, I have had the privilege of working very closely with Justice Zana, and we do a lot of training together for the judiciary. So the National Judicial Council, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the Honorable Justice Kekere Kun, GCON, established a committee headed by Honorable Justice Zana, the Chief Judge of Borno State, to implement its technology reform agenda for the Nigerian judiciary. The committee, working with some of the best independent Nigerian professionals and international private sector partners, has developed a robust Nigerian case management system for the judiciary. The components of the system include the legal mail, by which every lawyer will have a legal mail, an email, which is a sort of like an identity by which you enter into the system. It has e-filing. It has case management for the judiciary. It has online dispute resolution. It has electronic payment technology. It has AI drafting and research tools. And then it provided an added value for lawyers, for private lawyers, called the chamber system, so that you can have different lawyers in one chambers on the system, so that if one lawyer leaves, because which was one of the problems they had, that if a lawyer leaves, what happened is using a legal mail, which is unique to him, can he go away with the cases of the chamber? So they designed a system right now for that. Now, according to Justice Zana, states such as Rivers, Borno, Bayelsa, and Delta have already adopted the system. And I'll share what we did for them in Delta State to make sure that they could adopt it easily. Now, the Federal High Court, as has been said by our keynote, is currently on a trial run and training as a precursor to adoption, because the system which was developed by the NJC is robust, and it can work for different types of courts, different tiers of courts, and different levels of courts. So the Federal High Court can have it, the different state high courts can have it, Court of Appeal can have it, Supreme Court can have it. And in fact, right now, under the online dispute, under the AI drafting and research tools, they are undergoing, conducting sort of like test, trial run on that in some states like Bayelsa, Delta. And what they are doing there is to try and use that AI tool as a decision support for judges and checks, and that will also deal with some of those issues of uncertainty about use of precedent and things like that. So the test is going on right now. So while some courts in Nigeria have implemented the basic IT systems, the overall adoption of core technology remains limited. You can imagine that this tool is already available and only a few states have adopted it. Now, many courts remain heavily reliant on paper-based processes, leading to inefficiencies and delays. The specific areas where court technology adoption is lacking includes the limited use of the already developed Nigerian case management system. So they are doing manual tracking, which means a lot of backlog. And then the paper-based filing and document system. This increases the time spent on administrative tasks and reduces accessibility for litigants. The limited use of virtual court proceedings. A good example, recently I was doing a case and then the witness was in America on medical basis, and then we wanted to have virtual hearing so that we could take the witness. And I think we thought everybody had agreed on it. The next thing, they were filing appeals on whether there should be virtual hearing. So that means that there's a regulatory issue around making sure that the system is not abused. So some courts also lack funding because, as from the discussion, they don't have the funding to buy the hardware to make sure that the computers are there. At times, they don't have internet access, and then you see them trying to operate it on their mobile phone, not on desktops, and then, of course, the training. So, as Honorable Doyle suggested in his tip number 10, the judiciary seeking to overcome the challenges of adopting court technology should utilize the dynamism and innovation of the private sector to ensure that those who provide administrative support to the judiciary are independent. Now, this brings us to private lawyers and ministries. While the public sector portion of the judiciary is making tremendous progress, as I've said, with the system that they have developed in adopting technology, which would, of course, transform the justice delivery. The same cannot be said of the unofficial side of the judiciary, that is private lawyers and ministries. According to Carson, as I said earlier, lawyers, whether plaintiff, prosecution, and defense counsel, contribute significantly to delays in the legal process. Consequently, even if the court system is reformed with the best court technology, delays will remain if private lawyers are not up to speed with the technology they use. For this reason, it is for this reason that lawyers who want to be market leaders must invest in case management, research, client management tools such as DigiSlaw, Law Pavilion, and others provided by independent private sector actors. There is ongoing discussions about the possibility of accessing the national case management system platform via APIs that will make it interoperable, enabling single sign-on for users of both systems. This will bring the ecosystem at par with developments in other sectors, such as the banking sector. For instance, it would ensure a single window login to, say, DigiSlaw for lawyers, from where they can not only create their client's file and matters and generate time tickets and invoices and generate templates and draft court papers and contracts, but also link to the national case management system and e-file court papers and receive service of processes. They can also use the same window to access the e-learning platform to meet their MBA CEL mandatory obligation. It is an enormous task, but it is doable. Technology must be designed to make the work of judges, lawyers, and court officials easier for everyone. The crucial question is whether the adoption of court technology by private lawyers should be driven solely by the market, or whether regulation should also drive the sector's development. Of course, I've already mentioned the challenges, but let me share my concluding thoughts. thoughts on this matter. There is a people side to technology innovation. Digital transformation is not about technology, but about people, process, and technology. We must be aware of the Grundig law, which says that when those who benefit are not those who do the work, the technology is likely to fail or be subverted. Consequently, in adopting core technology, you must identify the problem to be solved and ensure the solution solves it. Ensure a good grasp of the product, understand your choices, account for additional help, and avoid repetition risk. Now, the integration of information technology infrastructure in Nigerian courts is a significant milestone in the journey towards judicial modernization, offering tons of benefit that transform the administration of justice. It can improve efficiency and productivity by automating tasks, enabling digital case management, and facilitating electronic filing, thereby significantly reducing delays and streamlining court processes. It will enhance transparency and accountability. Electronic records and case tracking provide greater visibility into proceedings, fostering public trust. Court technology will increase access to justice. Virtual hearings and online filing can remove barriers and make the justice system more accessible to the public. It will eventually result in cost savings, reduce reliance on paper, and improve case management can translate into significant savings for the judiciary. So key recommendations include developing a strategy, whether market or regulatory, for court technology adoption, implementing electronic filing and document management systems, introducing virtual court proceedings to reduce delay and improve accessibility, investing in IT infrastructure development and maintenance, mandate compliance by legal professionals operating in the court system as a basis to grow the market for adoption of court technology, providing training and support for judges, court staff, and legal professionals. You can put this into some short-term objectives and also some long-term objectives. But since it's a dialogue and there will be more time for discussion, I think I can yield at this point. Thank you so much, and thank you for the privilege to share my thoughts on this matter.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Like I say, when I listen to all the speeches that have happened so far, all I'm just thinking is there's so much work. There's so much that PSDF would actually look at how to kind of try to help to move the needle further, And the good thing is that is what we're set up to do, to try to see where we can actually, cause changes, effective changes. Now, I think we'll now go straight into the conversations. When a lot of us saw the invitation, I know we knew it was a dialogue. So they're actually the conversations, basically to see what should we be doing? How should we help this cause? Talking about a lot is being done and a lot more can be done. And to kickstart the conversations, we have three people who will be speaking to us to just basically, help us set the tone, make us start looking at, what is actually happening in this space and how we can do much more. So then when they set the tone, then we'll then now have the conversations from our end to say, given what has been said, what can be done? How can we go about doing this? Because that's what we're looking to achieve at the end of the dialogue, to see what can we do more? How can we support? How can private sector support for these reforms? We're looking at the reforms and innovations in the judicial space, especially looking at, how technology has done a lot of work there. So to kickstart this discussion, I would be calling on Mrs. Lola, Director of SAIP Africa, who would, like I said, start the conversation. Why does judicial strengthening matter for democracy and development? And Mr. Dekoe, please feel free to freestyle, because I know there are so many thoughts in your head. I don't want to be in your head
You're
right
reading
now.
my mind, Joy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joy, and good morning again. Thank you so much to all the speakers, Mr. Chairman, the DG of NASIMA, Prof, And all Leonard Silks on this side, actually. It's good to be in your company. Almost 14 years ago now, I stopped practicing, and actually, no, that's less. 10 years ago, I stopped practicing. But every time I'm in their company, I feel nostalgic. And 4 years before I stopped practicing, I was in the business and commercial law space, white collar crime. And I would work with corporate or business developers, let's say. They don't really like us. They don't. And they don't like us because they feel like we speak legalese and we impede the progress of transactions and deals. And so when I would ask anything about lawyers to you all, and that would be their response, that we're trying to sign a deal and you guys are telling us about caveats and all these things. Just make it happen. And I'm saying that because I think we've heard a lot from lawyers and from a very legal perspective, but I'll bring it home a little bit because I'm seeing all the faces in the room. I imagine you're all from different backgrounds, right? So let me just see, folks from the media, anybody from the media here? The Fourth Estate, the media is here, okay. Civil society, think tanks, civil society, no, they should be here. Think tank, civil society, yes. Business community, apart from NASIMA, American Business Council, the business community. Okay, so are you all from legal, the bench or the bar? Okay, just real estate, of course, yes. Business, that's the business community. Anybody from, do you want to tell us what sort of organizations you? Bank, that's the business community, financial institutions. So by business community, I mean you do any kind of commerce, real estate, financial institutions, agribusiness, mining sector, any sector that sells something, services or products. Okay, no. So could you just tell us what legal profession, everybody. Wow, okay, that's good. Joy, you need to diversify this crowd going forward. Because that's, yes. Agribusiness, okay, the business community. Okay, so I was doing that to go around to say, if we go back to the basics, as Senior Advocate Idigwe was saying, democracy is not really defined in our constitution, but by the time you read chapter 1 and 2, I think chapter 2 especially, you get the sense that the pillars of democracy built into the constitution is supposed to help us ensure that politics, the process of politics and governance reduces the chances that people can be oppressed. And there's some way that, the distribution of opportunity and resources becomes somewhat fair and as equal as it can possibly be. And the role of the legislature, which is to make the laws and try to achieve this objective, and then the role of the executive, which is to implement the law and execute it, they're very important. But the role of the judiciary is, when they talk about the role of the judiciary, they say it's to interpret the law, and that's almost incomplete, because there's a whole lot that interpretation does to society. And that would affect the business community, investors today, investors who might come down the line. That would affect, generations yet unborn, because the judiciary, by interpreting the law, even shapes social norms. And so in, putting PSDF's thoughts to developing the national agenda for democracy strengthening, there were lots of issues that we thought were fundamental to consolidating, to actually saving what's left of our democratic ideals and consolidating our democracy. And it's not by chance that strengthening specific democratic agencies, and the first one on that list being the judiciary, it's not by chance that happened. If you look at all of the other priorities, the other 3 priorities, civic education is one, private sector accountability is another one, and then land tenure reform is the fourth. All of them hinge on a strong judiciary. Everything we try to do around, ensuring that we're a society of not basal humans who succumb to the basic instincts of, our flesh, because whether we like it or not, it's still there. It hinges on what the judiciary interprets is the law. And when I go through, Joy said to talk about, the importance of the judiciary in a democracy. When I think about it, I sort of jotted how to simplify the importance of the executive arm of government, the legislature, the fourth estate, the media, and the judiciary. I had a longer list for the role of the judiciary than for the role of the other three arms of government. But because I really want this to be a conversation and I want to hear everybody's voices, I'll quickly read what's on the list and just quickly run through it. Of course, it's all been said, the judiciary is the guardian of the rule of law. I'll give you an example. In fact, what made me study law, I probably was about 14 years old or so. And if let's say your grandfather is, showing up in a city to visit you, let's say, and he doesn't know where to find you and the police rough him up, and you're not happy about that, well, you could get some recourse for that under normal circumstances, if justice is accessible and affordable to everybody. That's just a basic example. So basically, guardian of the rule of law, guardian of rights and protections. The judiciary is a check on the executive and the legislative arm of government. Until you see the collusion that could potentially happen between the executive and the legislature, you don't realize how important the judiciary is. Protector of rights and freedoms, I said that, very important, and this one, DG would agree very much with me and everybody in the private sector. The judiciary is an enabler of economic confidence. For a long time, one of the priorities of our government is to attract FDI. Even DFIs that have all the political risk insurance in the world, potentially, or at least are not in a much more difficult position to put their monies in, like private investors, still want some certainty in our judicial process, in the sanctity of contracts. Judiciary is a stabilizer in times of political crisis. I know that we've had a few political crises in Nigeria, or even constitutional crisis in our country. But I can think of other countries, like the US. And the judiciary plays a critical role there, or even Kenya during the 2017 elections. The judiciary is a builder of trust and legitimacy. A democracy is a relationship of trust between the people and those to whom they cede all their power to. And so we're working on a project with the BPP around business integrity certification for companies that bid for public procurement, for example. And one of the things that I was stressing to them is, if you have a business integrity certification process that gives companies an advantage, a competitive advantage over other companies, that process will be abused. Every system can be abused. But what do you do to retain the trust in that process? There must be a transparent grievance mechanism, a recourse that people know by which they can get justice. That's what the judiciary is. If the judiciary no longer is seen as the last bastion of who? The common man? If they're no longer seen as that, then the thread that brings us all together under a democracy just starts to unravel. Interpreter of social change. There are a few things like gender roles that the judiciary can weigh in strongly on, and that will determine whether women can own property or not, and whether women, those are critical things that the judiciary would not only look at the laws, but also look at public policy and the trajectory of, social economic evolution in making decisions. And finally, peace and unity. National unity and peace is critical. You won't be surprised if you've lived in Nigeria for a few years to know that some folks would feel, by virtue of my tribe, I can never get justice in court. Or by virtue of there are cleavages of division that we, drum up, which can, build a certain level of distrust to the point of instability in the country. And that's the role that the judiciary plays. I'll end with this. The first point of contact with the judiciary, especially the criminal justice system, is law enforcement. So when we are thinking about, the judiciary, it's the entire, just as S.A. Anidigwe mentioned, there's also the role for us on the bench, maybe on the bench. I'm no longer on the bench, but there's also the role for us to play. There's also the role for citizens to play in engaging the courts and relying on the judicial system. So with that regard, it would be very helpful to hear from the room as we discuss today. Joy, tell me who speaks next. As we discuss today, what priorities you think we should consider in advocating or supporting judicial reform or judicial strengthening. There are some low-hanging fruits like the ICS, the ICT system that they talked about, low-hanging fruits. Digital laws work with the law firms. Those are some low-hanging fruits, but there are some much more difficult questions. One is the independence of judiciary. It's a much more difficult question. It comes up every time. How do we continue to preserve the independence of the judiciary? Another one is resources. If courts don't have internet, they don't have electricity, ideally, it's not the role of the private sector or anybody else but the government to provide those resources. So those are some of the things that I would like us to sort of have a note that we take away from here to work with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dekenya. Okay, so the next speaker is right next to you. If you could just move it to her, Mrs. Yomai Digbe, who would be speaking on how can judicial integrity and independence be reinforced without compromising accountability. But like I said, feel free to, I know you're very passionate about innovation as well and technology, so please feel free to go in that line. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to all the senior colleagues here and everybody else here. A really good question. And when I was reading about this in preparation to come for today's dialogue, there were a lot of thoughts that came into my head. And I think it's also very interesting to tackle this question from the point of a millennial, which I am. And I want to give two examples to sort of start off my thoughts on this question. The first example I'll give is what happened when I finished my law degree in the UK. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment, maybe about 10 minutes away from my university campus. And when my tenancy ended, which is a normal practice in the UK, the landlords always want to sort of hold on to your deposit. And so I had this landlord who I had cleaned up the place, handed it over, and the next thing, she had sent pictures to my parents, and this is quite funny, with condoms on the floor because she thought I was Nigerian and our culture was conservative, and said this is what she left, like I was some kind of like sexually depraved young woman living in, it was like blackmail. And I said that this wasn't, luckily I had like 3 or 4 of my friends that had helped me clean up the place, and I was like, I didn't do this. And in the UK, they have an automated online mediation system for these types of disputes. So I went there, sort of essentially sued her, wrote my arguments about this is what happened, and I won. And I always say that's the first case I ever won. It's ironic that it was straight after the end of my law degree. And I was so fascinated. I mean, this whole thing was done within the space of like a 1-week period. And I was completely fascinated by the speed at which I was able to resolve this issue. The fact that I didn't need to engage a lawyer, I could represent myself. Of course, I had the lethal weapon that I was technically a lawyer, so that gave me an advantage. But if I was just a regular civilian, I could represent myself in this context. And so that's one example. The second example I will give is I'm sure a lot of us are aware during COVID when Thames Omale and their manager were arrested in Uganda. And, we were engaged on the Nigeria end in Punuka to sort of help get them out. And so for us, we thought if this was in Nigeria, you just go to court and you get bail. It was really simple, and that was already happening. The celebrities were being arrested in Nigeria. People can remember when Funke as well. So we thought this was simple. We engaged, a law firm in Uganda that we work with, and they went to court and they didn't get bail. We didn't understand. This is not serious. In Nigeria, it's done. And so the information we got back was that there was an order from the top that they were to be held. Because what had happened was these guys had walked into a political quagmire in Uganda and they didn't understand. There were competing issues. One was that local Ugandan artists had not been able to have shows in Uganda during COVID. And one of the biggest opposition figures to Museveni is a musician. And so they were using the COVID protocols to essentially impede his campaigns during this election period. And of course, there was a whole hula baloo on social media when Omale and Thames come and have this crowded, sold-out show in Uganda. So the president must be seen to be fair. But in Nigeria, I can beat my chest and say that even if that happened, right, even if there was a political undertone to something, there would have to be significant exchange of monies between the judge and whoever this political actor is for the judge to take that kind of decision over a very simple claim. And for once, I appreciated the Nigerian judiciary. I was like, I don't think this would ever really happen in Nigeria. And so whenever I think about whether the judiciary in Nigeria is independent, I have a very different perspective. I actually think that they are. The question is that they do not choose to exercise that independence in the interest of justice, quote and unquote. They exercise that independence in the interest of themselves. And there are arguments around why this is the case. There are arguments around, are they properly compensated? There are arguments around even how do judges become elevated and the politics of that. I will come into those things as I sort of answer this question, but I thought to always start with these two. These are not antidotes. These are actual things that happen, and I think they frame this thing. So for me, let's go back to what I talked about, the mediation situation I had as is coming out of my degree. What I saw in that process was one, a transparent process that could be understood by the average man, that was fast. And it gave me, a foreigner in the UK, access to justice. And that's one of, and that in itself answers this point of how can judicial integrity and independence be reinforced. Because when you have technology, what technology really does is that it comes in and digitalizes existing processes, but then goes a step forward to create a transparency with that, where technically anybody can come in and say that this is the process through which you go from A to B. And that is critical for judicial integrity. A lot happens in Nigeria, going back to my point where I said our judiciary is independent. They just choose not to exercise it in the interest of justice, not in all circumstances, but in several circumstances, some of which we have seen play out very publicly. And so if you had technology, it makes it a little bit more difficult to hide. Because our systems are so manual, there's so much that can happen, and it can be, excused or unexplained, and we just sort of, we speak in hushed tones in quiet spaces about it. But if technology was there, it would be more, it's not impossible, but it would be more difficult. So to me, that's one critical reason why we need to be looking at innovation and technology as a way to bring in much needed transparency into the judicial processes that we have in the country. And the second thing it does, if you go back to my story about what we experienced in Uganda, and my point, and I really stand on this point that we do have an independent judiciary in Nigeria, is the fact that how does someone become a judge and then keep on rising as a judge in Nigeria? There's a major problem with that. And I think technology can come in and solve that problem. What we have in Nigeria is a judicial system that is almost like you keep on elevating based on how much time you've spent in that track versus whether or not you are actually a good judge. And it is why we would have disorder in how precedents are applied. We have judges that have never practiced a day in their life who are supposed to be adjudicating on commercial issues that they do not understand. Again, to your point, to the previous speaker's point around how courts are critical in terms of even commerce. If we have commercial decisions of judges that are not in the interest of the business economics, it just doesn't work. And we see that all the time. At least in my firm, we are a commercial firm, and it can be quite frustrating. Even the slowness. My specific practice area that I'm passionate about is, and thank God I have Professor Shodipo here, is intellectual property and entertainment. And I mean, I think every commercial, basically everyone suffers in the hand of the judiciary, but I think particularly intellectual property and entertainment really suffers a lot. One, is a very niche area, and the nature of our disputes are such that it's very time sensitive. Like, even if you get justice in 10 years, it's already too late. There's no amount of damages that would be given that would really that would really compensate for the damage. And we see this over and over again all the time. So if we had a technology system, right, that was tracking the performance of judges, it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be politics that would be played in terms of elevation. But again, it would make it a bit more difficult, because now people have things to hold on to say, but hey, this judge has had XYZ EFG outcomes. Why are they not moving forward, but this other judge is moving forward? What it would mean is that even if the politics has to come into play, the quality of the judges or the outputs that they put out has to increase, so that there's less questions around why you are graduating through the system. So I think that technology can really come in, and it also answers this issue of accountability, because it then gives us, the public, the ability to have data that we can use to ask questions. Because a lot of the time when you talk about these things about judiciary in Nigeria, again, like I said, there are things you say under your breath in quiet rooms and in hushed tones. There are rumors per se. No one really has anything really. I mean, you have what you have, but it's a bit difficult to brazenly come out and say these things. But if you had a technology that created more transparency and accountability, then it would just make everybody sit up and make the system work more efficiently. Just to sort of conclude, and I know that maybe some things I've said are controversial. I don't think they are. These are things that we all talk about quietly in our quiet rooms. But if we are going to be real about strengthening our democracy, then we have to be honest about what the challenges are with the judiciary, which is a key arm. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, probably the most important arm in strengthening our democracy. And one of the other things I would say is, on the private lawyer side, and in my experience, there's such a resistance from private lawyers to want to have technology be a part of their practice. Because remember that the things that go on in the judiciary are not just the judges alone, they also involve lawyers. So it's this unhealthy union, right, that we really need to get them to have a divorce and bring in this third party, which is the technology, to ensure that this relationship is a healthy one. So there is a lot of resistance from lawyers, private lawyers in private practice, to use technology, and it's a challenge. And I sometimes wonder why. I mean, on one hand, you know why, but on the other hand, especially if you're more in the commercial space, I mean, a lot of us lawyers here can attest to the fact that it's becoming extremely more competitive in practice. Clients, the economy is doing what it's doing, and clients are trying to pay less, it's extremely competitive. Now, if you were using the technology in your office appropriately as a private lawyer, you should be able to essentially show the value of your work by simple things like, for example, time ticketing. I spent X amount of billable hours on your brief as a client, and this is what the value of that work is. Is why when you travel abroad to law conferences and you meet lawyers in other countries, it's sometimes a little sad as a Nigerian lawyer. Well, I mean, not compared to Africa. Nigerian lawyers are ahead when it comes to the rest of Africa. Maybe South Africa can be the only place where they're, but I mean, Nigerian lawyers are really at the top of the game in Africa. I really have to say that. However, like when it comes to the issue of billing, we struggle. I don't know how many people here, except your client is foreign, has a local client that is willing to pay you your hourly rates. Only foreign clients. And even now, foreign clients have gotten smart and they're tying you down into flat fees, which in my view, as a general value for our profession, it shows that like we're not holding our value as a profession, where basically like clients can railroad us on fees and things like that. And I think that if we're using technology to show the value of our time and our work, it would help us a lot with that. And that's why you look at the consulting firms, they don't play. Like they're good, whether they're in Nigeria, they're in Moon, this space, it's consistent, you know? And I think we have a lot that we can learn from those consulting firms in terms of how they do those things. So again, so this is again about accountability. As a lawyer, how long are you taking to deliver work for your client? If you are using technology and you know that my time is equals to X, and I have told the client is going to take me X and Y amount of time to deliver this work, the technology is there to keep me accountable, to deliver that work to the client within the time I've said. So, you know, there's no angel in the room. What technology does is levels everything out, creates transparency of the process, and allows and forces everyone that is interacting with that technology to be more accountable, and therefore you would then think that the outcome of that would be sort of a more robust system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isioma. Thank you so much. I'm actually curious to know why lawyers are not so keen to take up or to use technology more in practice. And, you know, but in the next 10 minutes, I want to open it up to the room for comments, questions, even if the question is about a presentation that was made prior to the discussions. Okay, Mike would come around. There's one hand up here and another hand. Okay, fantastic. A room of lawyers, yes. So, okay, so there was, that hand went up first. And then, okay, so we'll alternate with the ladies. So that hand, and this hand, then we'll come to this side.
No, not me.
No, yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much to all the presenters.
You can keep it to like a minute, 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. I hear you very well, Prof, when you talked about having development partner with the judiciary to get us to where we want to get to. But I want to fault that process a little bit, because development partners can really not get us to where we want to. We want a holistic approach to actually integrating technology in our judiciary if we truly want the future we want. And I don't see a reason why our government can put that in our funding budget. Even if you graduate it and have it, graduated in 2 years, right? Make it a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan. I think we should be able to make our government accountable to us. Why are we not placing judiciary on the front burner where it should be? You know, there is really little the judges can do. They can't speak for themselves. But we can see that even as citizens, we can make the government do the right thing. Why are we that poor? We are not that poor. And I believe as a nation, if we actually put the judiciary on the front burners where they ought to be, this would have been tackled. If we had taken it up 5 years ago and put up a specific amount. Why I always say that development partners cannot get us to where we want to, because we will now have silos. I remember in 2006 when I got called to bar, I had I had one of my gifts for Cultivar was one of the latest laptop. You know, you could write on it, you could flip it, you could do that. Do you know the judiciary got it in 2007? And I went to their office. It was just lying down there. They didn't know how to operate it. It was just sitting there, getting a lot of. But these are things that development partners do, right? But you can't just buy it and just keep and take a picture and send to your funding partner and say, "Oh, I have done it." No, we actually need to own our process. We actually own it and make sure that we see it through. And then recently, like 2 years ago or 1 year ago, I saw an interview for elevation to Court of Appeal was cancelled because some of the judges, the candidates for the interview, said they cannot use judiciary. They cannot use laptop, that it must be written test. And it was accepted by NJC. No, that kind of thing, that should disqualify you immediately. You shouldn't, in fact, it should stop you from being a candidate for that interview immediately. Why do we still tolerate that in our system? And it is us that will speak for the judiciary. I don't know why, but there is a law in place that they can't really speak from the bench, really. But we on this side can speak and ensure that the right thing is being done. And I applaud the organizers of this because we are a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you hand over the mic, just name an organization that you're from.
Oh, Punuka Attorneys and Solicitors.
So everybody just name that gentleman over there and then come back, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And my name is Jude Igbanoy. I'm a lawyer and a journalist. I feel very, very delighted that I have the opportunity to attend this dialogue. However, the moderator, I would have spoken, I would have made my observations, a little bit longer, but because you limited us to about a minute or 2 minutes, I'm going to be very brief. I'm surprised that Nasima DG and the keynote speaker spoke so much. In fact, every other person has spoken so much about the judiciary, yet we don't have a single representative of the judiciary here in this dialogue. According to the late MK Abiola, it's like shaving somebody's head in his absence. Also, we do not have a single representative from the bar. Although when I mean the bar, I'm talking of the NBA. No branch. Is there any branch chairman? Yeah, ESCO, yes. Yeah, I'm delighted. But again, what I would suggest to the conveners of this forum is to try and see if we can elevate this discussion a little bit to a national level. Maybe target the next NBA AGC and have a larger forum to discuss it, because the issues raised here today are so critical, so crucial, that we can't just have this small dialogue and think we'll achieve the purpose so quickly. But however, let me be very, very, very brief. Responding to my learned silk, Professor Shodigbo, I share your pain in the quagmire you are in, where a case you are in, it keeps going from one judge to the other on account of transfers and elevation and all that. But I think that problem, we cannot allow that problem to sit there comfortably. It has been there for many years. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the bar. One of the first challenges I had was a case I was involved in, Federal High Court. The judge was transferred from Lagos, I think, to Kano or so. He took the file. Federal High Court to Kano. I said he will continue. I rushed to my principal, then and I said, look, what is happening? Can't we get another judge? They said, no, the Federal High Court is one division, so he is absolutely okay to continue the case where he is. I pushed this matter, and all I was hearing was, well, the judge has he has said the basic parts of the case. examination in chief, cross examinations and all that, there's no point for another judge to hear that he could continue. And that was exactly what happened. He decided the case from Lagos, transferred to Kano. He heard the case from Kano, gave judgment there. I was I felt really bad about that. But my learned silk, I think the solution lies within us lawyers. When a situation like that occurs, counsel on both sides can agree. Since we have had examination in chief, cross-examination, we have submitted written address, let us agree that the new judge can continue this case. If counsel on both sides agree, let the new judge, I understand your concern about dominion. I don't think if all that has been done, the case has been heard, trial, examination, cross-examination, I don't think dominion evidence would matter at that point. It's just for the new judge to look at the written addresses, and I'm sure those judges will even like it, that they are not further burdened with heavy work. This is what I think should happen. Then, Malene Siki also raised a very critical issue about judges not wanting to come before lawyers and all that. What happened to the bar bench forum? You seem to be worried that when judges come, they are going to face criticism. I think that is a little bit you are oversimplifying it. I don't think so, respectfully, because you see, there have been good outcomes from bench and bar forums. Why do I say so? In Lagos, it has achieved a lot because it is through such interactions that we now have some very dramatic changes. The judges used to sit at 11 a.m. in Lagos. It is through this bar and bench forum when lawyers keep complaining, I had a case, the judge did not sit at also time and all that. Positive criticism. Now I can say confidently that 90% of judges sit at 9 a.m. When they are not going to sit at 9 a.m. in Lagos, they give advance notice to say, look, for one reason or the other, I'll be delayed for about this. And it's a positive change. It's a positive change. So I don't want to dismiss the fact that bar and bench forums should continue. Before they became judges, they were lawyers. They shouldn't run away from positive criticism, and it should be both sides. And in fact, the fear should be
Let's give other people a chance, and then if we have more time, we'll come back.
Okay,
Thank you very much. But those were very interesting perspectives. So the lady here, and then we have one more intervention after that, and then we'll come back to more questions. So this time I'm going to be strict, unfortunately, because of my senior colleague, with the 2 minutes.
Thank you very much indeed. My name is Amalola Ikwagu, partner George Ikoli and Okagwe. This has been a very interesting forum, and I've really, my eyes have been opened to a lot, and I've also learned a bit from what has been said. On the rule of law, I think that it is clear that justice should not only be prompt, it should also be reasonably certain. We've come across situations nowadays where you cannot advise clients with any degree of certainty on the possible outcome of their cases. Because you have to say, you now begin to become very innovative and imaginative with your language. If this happens, then this may happen, then this may happen. And that is not what law is supposed to be about. Law should be certain. There are precedents of the upper courts of the top apex court in Nigeria, which in some instances even cause our hairs to curl. And there's nothing you can do about it because of the doctrine of stare decisis. So there's a lot that has to be done in maintaining consistency of standards amongst the judges and the justices. And on the issue of collaboration between the bench and the bar, I align with what Mr. Igbano said. At least in Lagos, there is the bench and bar forum in the MBA Lagos branch, and they've been able to achieve quite a bit. And then again, I belong to Nigeria Maritime Law Association. We also do training for judges. Most of the training, we guide the judges, we tell them things that are developing, and they are open And it's a closed training, so it's not as if anybody goes around and says, this judge displayed ignorance when placed to a certain question. And I think every area, every sector of legal practice, we can key into that as form a pressure, kind of a pressure body, and train our judges so that the quality of their judgments can compare with that obtainable in the rest of the world. And then, yes, government is a three-armed stool, yes. We have the judiciary, we have the executive, we have the legislature. And I think the time has come for the judiciary not to be, the judiciary should take a stand. It's an equal partner in government. It's not a baby begging for crumbs from the judiciary or from the executive. And it's time for them to take the stand. Unfortunately, as we have discussed many times, the apex, that's the head of the judiciary in Nigeria, many times the chief justice doesn't get to stay long enough in the office to make the kind of changes or far-reaching changes that are desired or required before the term elapses. So maybe some kind of, there'll be a look also into that as to see, so that to see that the Chief Justice can get to stay longer in office. However, that is a matter of details. And something else, we've all talked about judges. I also mentioned the part that judges were not here. But judges are not the only ones who are critical. Court officials. The court officials are a huge and a key part. All they can do is to disappear your file, and nothing will happen. The judges will keep on telling you, you cannot find, and that is the end of the matter. And there's so many things. We keep on talking about electrifying, e-filing and all that. And I believe that some people actually frustrated the e-filing process from being a real thing in Lagos, because of course they get to benefit from all the give me this, give me that, money for this, money for that. So we cannot close our eyes to all this. When we are talking about the judges, we should also make a holistic approach. If somebody expresses frustration to me about the registry, they gave them training, they brought people to come and train them, but they'll keep on doing the same thing over and over again to the end that ends of justice are not served. And finally, this is just to address what Mr. Igbano said on the issue of judges of counsel agreeing. We've done it before. We've agreed with counsel on the other side when a judge was transferred. No, this judge retired. We agreed with counsel on the other side. We brought an application that the judge should rely on all the evidence and all that, and go on and then we filed our written addresses, and she gave judgment. In the end, of course, we regretted it. So at times because with what we thought was clear was apparently not clear when the judgment was delivered. So at times you have to be very careful and about what you ask for, because you might get what you didn't expect. So on that note, I hand over. Thank you.
The difference between the intention behind what was written and what was then communicated. Okay, so just a quick thing. By the way, I never really meet my full namesake, so you're my namesake. Very nice to meet you, which means we bear exactly the same name.
Omolola?
Yes. But just to address the question on the on Zoom, online, and also the question that was raised by my learned senior also before you spoke, whether the NJI, the National Judicial Institute, is represented, or whether anybody from the bench is represented. NBA was resolved, they're here, but anybody from the bench. They were invited. In fact, they were supposed to be giving a whole presentation about this. Dates, venue, and all that didn't quite work out. This had to be held today, and we couldn't move the date. But two things, there'll be other sessions, and they'll certainly have to be, part of those sessions on this particular topic. And everything that will come out of this, I don't want to call it a white paper, because usually white papers go somewhere to just die and gather dust. But the reports that we would continue to work on would be communicated with them, and you can trust PSDF. By that, I mean the PSDF custodians to follow up. So, but before we go to continue to take comments, we have just 15 more minutes. So if we use the time wisely, we have one more intervention from Nenna from the Amazon Web Services, AWS. Because AWS does quite a lot of work with the public sector on digitalization, I understand. And we were talking before you came about the efforts around digitalization of the judicial system and case management system, both on the on the bar and also talking about it for legal firms. It'd be great to hear your perspective on potentially, how the work you're doing or how AWS's support for the public sector in the digitalization or digital transformation could maybe provide some learning experiences for the work on the judicial side.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Nana Irebisi. I lead government strategy for Amazon Web Services, which is an Amazon business focused on technology. So very happy to be here. Apologies, I was late, so I missed the earlier conversation. I had a session that I couldn't cancel. But very exciting. I think I've already heard all the right things around e-filing, which is really important. And I mean, it's a bit, I know that there's some super intelligent lawyers in here and, you might all argue about the use case, but I'd just like to share a bit about what we're doing in terms of public sector in Nigeria and also what we're doing as Amazon across different countries when it comes to the legal space. So I think that COVID provided a really great, and I'm just going to go a bit back before I come forward. COVID provided a great case for a lot of things to go digital. Unfortunately, I think in the case in Nigeria, things went digital and then quickly went back to being, back to normal. And I see this not only in the law space, but even in government. The government people behave like COVID never, enabled them to leverage digital tools. So meetings still want to be held in person. People still want you to fly to Abuja for a one-person meeting. And I'm still seeing that. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. My auntie flew into the country yesterday morning for a court case that she's been in the country 3 times. Every time it's been adjourned. She's still here. So, it's a bit frustrating just to understand that this is still the case. And as I was coming here, I was just, catching up with news, and I was seeing this case where a lawyer, a judge in the US was having a court session with a police officer, and he was dressed COVID-wise. So he was wearing his shirts, but he's still wearing his boxers. And it was hilarious. But you just see that every other person continued to adopt the way things were done. But in terms of how things were done in Nigeria, we went back to paper. Paper will be the death of us in Nigeria and in the legal space. If you want to transform the legal services in Nigeria, you need to adopt digital tools. There's no other way to say it. We cannot be so behind. And I always, when people talk to me about generative AI and how it's going to disrupt the legal space, it's already disrupted the legal space. The problem is that every single thing that we do in Nigeria is so paper-driven that you cannot layer AI on it. So the bedrock for artificial intelligence, which will shorten the time for all legal processes by more than 90%, is digital tools. But everything still sits in someone's file, in someone's folder, and people are still doing memos. So how do you begin to adopt things quickly? How do you use intelligent document processing to ensure that even if you did something in a paper format, you automatically put it in a digital format where you can run a query on it? I mean, there is no reason why any lawyer should be spending hours and weeks going through a precedent when you can type in a query. I think most of us already kind of leverage AI tools, and if you don't leverage it, I don't know why you're not leveraging it. Emails are being written by AI agents. People are querying and give me the precedents for what happened in this year and that year, and they're getting the information they need. And and as I said to you, if you don't leverage this, we continue to widen the gap between where Nigeria is and where every other economy is going. And unfortunately, we're still going to highlight something like Singapore. I'm not even going to talk about the US and all those places because they're your usual case studies. But in Singapore, we worked very closely with the Singaporean government to create what we call GPT Legal. So they actually have a whole chat GPT type of tool that has been trained on their legal data that allows you to be able to shorten the time in research, in queries, in filing, and just get things done a bit more efficiently. And 75% of lawyers in Singapore leverage a file, like a digital tool, to be able to make a decision. So as this is a great forum to continue to have that conversation. We're seeing, apart from the legal space, we're seeing quite a lot of inquiries just from government on, okay, how do we go less paper? How do we go less paper? The way to go less paper is to go less paper. You have to start. And you have to just start one day and say, okay, you know what? Everything that we've done this year in the last 6 months, how do we move it? And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with any legal firm or every government organization that wants to quickly adopt that on how we can support. I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Nena. I think, yeah, I think that should be like, we should record parts of that and use that to just promote the case management, moving to the case management system. I know when the senior advocate was talking, he mentioned only 5 states out of 36 that are adopting it. And I'm wondering what's going on. I've sent it to you. That's the first thing you should start to focus on in our next phase of the work. A few of the comments addressed some of the things that Prof said. So I want to give Prof at least a minute or two right of response. Then I want to come to the NBA folks. If you have any if you have any contributions, we'll have room for just 2 or 3 more contributions. Strictly 2 minutes. We have to be done in 10 minutes. But Prof.
Thank you very much. To correct 1 or 2 things, and then to answer one. I did not say that we should leave everything to development partners. I did give an example of a central bank that funded the creative space in Nigeria. And I'm saying that, and I mentioned that they also have bailed banks that failed. I'm saying that we need to make a case that money should be made available for the judiciary, the legal system. But to do this, I'm saying that we need to conduct studies, because the data which will reveal a lot in terms of the importance, what people are suffering and what we can gain, and we are not yet doing that. And maybe the AWS Digits Law and similar organizations would help in doing this. Then the bar and bench, I think I stressed the importance of bar and bench talking, collaboration. The point I'm making is that lawyers should learn that there's a way in which you talk to judges. And I've been at some of those for where the judges get discouraged, and that, I mean, and some of them don't want to participate. I don't want to mention names of judges, including heads of courts, that don't want to attend programs. I mean, some years back, we did something for one of the government agencies, and we told the DG, because we knew her, that this is what you're going to say. We wrote the paper for her. But she got there and said, they had written paper for him, but I'm not going to use it. And she just started speaking. And at the end of it, the CJ of the Federal High Court, represented by another, the most senior, said, in fact, the woman spoke Yoruba to me. I didn't know, I thought she's Hausa, and said she's going to report me to the CJ. So it was as if it was our fault. So just managing them, because we want them to change. I mean, then please, let's not use the word training for judges. They don't like it. It's capacity building. They don't believe that. So I think that's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is really important. I think two things to what Prof said. Having worked in this advocacy space for many years, and also on a very critical topic, corruption, for example, you learn that messaging is as important. You know how they say the message is almost not important as not as powerful as how you deliver it. You can have a fantastic message. If it's delivered wrong, then you don't achieve the purpose of the message in the first place anyway. So I completely understand what Prof is saying. That's important. And also tying to that, the question about why the bar and the bench working well together. This message from Justice Zana came from the senior advocate Idigwe online, because we did reach out to Justice Zana, and he sent his apologies. The date did not work for him because of a personal commitment he had today. He assures that the NJC has done the heavy lifting with the cloud-based platform that it has set up. It is now for all to work together on adoption and implementation. So just, we're not, this is not a talk shop, and PSDF does not invest in talk shops. So I hope that we would be able to get a lot done. I'm looking to where the folks from the NBA are seated. It would be very important to at least give NBA. Okay, I want to give the NBA an opportunity. NBA, yes?
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ngozi Victor from MBA Lagos. I'll just say Mrs. Omolola has kind of touched on, my what I got from this discourse. But I would also like to say that the NBA and the judiciary are also working together. Yesterday, we were at a training, e-filing for lawyers that was organized, that was held at the Federal High Court, Ikoyi. And that was from the NJC. Justice Faji was the presiding judge that organized that. And I can see that there are steps being taken for this digitalization. And we'll keep on pushing, talking to our members to embrace these changes and also talking to the judiciary within our sphere of influence. Thank you.
So I have a question for whoever else is going to speak. Thank you so much for that. And I saw this hand up and one other hand up here. I think those are the only two we'll take. If you know, sorry, we couldn't take more, but we'll make sure we have more time next time. If you know anything about the efforts to measure all of this, progress that's been made by perhaps, how the case backlog is moving, or performance of justices so that, cases don't always go on appeal and get returned. If you know anything about a bigger picture monitoring and evaluation, perhaps at the Ministry of Justice, please talk about it. But if you don't know, that's fine. And if they don't know, then that should be on our list. So let's do this hand, and then that gentleman, and then we'll close. Please, 2 minutes. You have no choice. 2 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Tola Wijamiu from the Federation of Informal Workers Organization of Nigeria, FIWON. I want to say that every one of the presenters said something, but we are talking about digitalization of the judiciary now. And I think from the point that everyone is speaking here, think lawyer. We are not talking about the citizens, which are the informal workers, who are mostly the victims of this judiciary system. Because when we are working on digitalization of the system, I want to say that when we did a kind of training for our members on human rights, because informal workers are the most exploited and the most harassed working population in Nigeria. You find them on the roadside and everything. They can somebody can just pick them up and throw them in jail for 6 months and nobody will ask any question. So even when they have not done anything wrong. So when we understand what is their right, how to go about it and everything, there is a question that comes out of that discussion, is that one of the reasons why police extortion will continue is because when you go to the courts, you spend more at the courts than the police station. That is one. That once you are taken to the courts, it is almost impossible to perfect your bill in a day, because there are so many obstacles within that court system that will not make you get out within 3 days. And I will cite an example of somebody who has actually done nothing wrong, just because you sew a cloth for a customer and the customer did not like what you did. And he's saying that you should go and buy that cloth and refund the deposit that he has given to you. In the process of trying to apologize and give, you just pick that person up, arrest him, and throw him So when we're asking not to pay any police bribe and everything, on getting to the courts, in fact, we are even blaming ourselves. Why not part with 20,000 naira at the police station instead of going through this? Because when he was asked to perfect the bill, the register was demanding for 60,000 naira. The prosecutor was demanding for 40,000 naira. Before you could perfect all the old documents and every other thing, you are going to the sum of 200,000 naira. And immediately he was arraigned before the judge and every magistrate. He was sent to Ikoyi prison. So he spent almost 2 weeks at Ikoyi prison. He came back and the family were blaming us that we were the one that sent out. So what I want to ask in a nutshell is that, is it not possible to digitalize the court system in a way that perfection of bail can be made within a day for flimsy offenses or very lesser offenses, in which the courts have granted liberal bail condition? Because when you look at the whole paper system and everything, somebody said he wants to go and verify your address. He will need 2 days before he can go and verify your address. And you want to ask, can't I have a digital system where my address, every other thing that the court required can be accessed within some few hours? Because if that thing is done, if I am so sure that if I am arrested today and I knew I've not done anything wrong, I will get to the court, perfect my bill and still get that, then police extortion and whatever we call it will reduce drastically. So that is the point from the citizen point of view that I also want us to look at it when we are talking about this digitalization system. Then the second one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Write the second one, please. Write
Okay.
it down and send it.
The second one is this Cybercrime Act. I don't know what we are going to do about it.
Write it down and send it to the Secretariat, because that's very important. But you see, the point you raised is a very, very important one. And I had it in my notes. We didn't quite come to it, but it's true. If the law has a different face or has a different, it's a different experience when you encounter the law. If you are an elite or a privileged person, a middle-class person, not lower middle-class person, or much less, then there's more that can be done. And so thinking about how to make the judiciary serve folks in your sector is essential. And that really holds the thread of our democracy together. So that's a very, very important intervention. And like I said, the criminal justice system, first point of call is those who even arrest people with very limited or flimsy, I guess, petitions or complaints. Okay, final intervention. We're already over time, 2 minutes.
All right, so my name is Sanctus Eje. I'm representing Terra Legal here. Terra Legal, although it's a law firm, but it's actually a tech-based legal firm. Now, I've enjoyed the discussion and the interventions greatly, but I want to point out something. We basically talked about judiciary as a court system. And I think that is one of the major problems we are facing as a people. And I'll also talk about tech in a moment. Number one, we should be talking about dispute resolution rather than court system. One of the biggest breakthroughs of Nigeria in any system was in, what do you call it? No, not even ADR. I'm talking of when Nigeria was able to revolutionize the system very quickly is in communication. What we used to have was NITEL. Now, how did NITEL, I remember then David Mark as a minister, he made a statement that this telephone is not for everybody. How did telephone become something for everybody? Private participation. And so, number one, let us begin to emphasize dispute resolution. That brings me to the Terra Legal I talked about. I will take from where Mrs. Idibe made a statement, the digital dispute resolution. Now, or tech is not a platform, it's an ecosystem. If you like, digitalize the entire court. If there is no ecosystem to support what you have built in the court, it will still not work. For instance, you don't even have evidence that supports the digital platform. You still come to the court and you'll be telling long stories. So why I said I'm here though for a law firm, but this is the last thing I'm going to say. There is a platform, I work closely with NEPC, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, and there's a platform I have proposed to them that we are developing. We call it Leg Tech Niger. One of the modules on the platform is digital dispute resolution. What does it do? This will summarize all I want to say. For an importer and an exporter, your charts are connected on the platform. So when you are negotiating a business, all your charts they are all collected. At the end of your chart, there is an automatic contract generator that will immediately, from the charts we've had, we are in an age of AI, it will generate a contract for you. You confirm, and then, now, the eventual thing that will happen is that payment will be automatic. You agree that our dispute resolution will be on this platform. And eventually, you can pull out evidence that you will use in the digital dispute resolution from the same platform. First thing, AI will generate, what do you call it? The first point of dispute is that AI will do it. From what you have submitted, this is my opinion. Do this, do this, do this. If you don't agree with it, now AI will now suggest specialists, so that everybody will not just be an authority. The way we practice law in Nigeria, everybody is an authority in maritime, everybody is an authority in whatever. So AI will suggest for you people who have track record in this area, then you contact them and all that. So basically, let us begin to look at a way to challenge the status quo, not just the court, but dispute resolution, where private participants can take part. Government will learn when private participants begin to take away their business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And I would like to thank everyone for, the insightful conversations and comments. Please, if you have further comments, you could just send us an email. I think my email will be displayed at the end, so we can take this conversation further and also look to having you in further conversations, further dialogues we'll be having on this. Moving up next, we'll be going straight to a presentation that will be handled by Ms. Alaba Oshu.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, good morning. Yeah, very interesting conversation so far. I'm delighted. You can hear me? Okay. It's really an honor to speak in front of every learned professional here and every other person. So I'm just quickly going to piggyback on what Ms. Inena shared at how, the legal system cannot work efficiently without technology. And that is what we're doing at Digits Law. We've built a robust set of tools to cater to this need. Please, next slide. So, the question is, what is Digits Law? And I'm just going to briefly summarize what Digits Law is. So Digits Law is a cloud-based legal practice management platform, right? It has been created to help law firms, corporate legal teams, and also justice institutions operate efficiently in this digital era we are today. Digits Law provides an end-to-end suite of tools to streamline legal workflows, enhance collaborations, and support data-driven decision-making across the justice system. The mission why Digits Law was created was to digitize legal operations in Africa and empower legal professionals with technology that improve access to justice, transparency, and service delivery. Next slide, please. So we've built, tons of different features, right, that answers and caters to these needs. And for the sake of this presentation, I've broken them down into 4 different aspects, right? The first one is the case and client management. We have tons of features under that. We have also for the bill and expense management. We have for accounting, and we have for teams management. So in my next slides, I'll just run through them. Next slide. Thank you. So for case and client management, there are tons of things that help from end-to-end management of cases, right? And we have all this set of features. We have case management, time tracking, conflict check, document management, client portals, all these things that help law firms, legal professionals when they're managing their cases, right, from end to end. And we've built this suite of features to make sure that from discovery to sentencing, client intake, you are able to stay up to date with active, pending, or completed matters with the best case management software. You're able to track time, work with your client efficiently. We have a client portal where you can, seamlessly conversate with your client. This law, we're essentially concerned about moving from the paper-based workflow. We want everyone to go digital. And, even during the course of this conversation, everyone has sort of reiterated how important technology is, in every space, and especially the legal space. Next slide, please. Also, for the bill and expense management, we know, it's not important to run a law firm without also, managing money and, all of that aspect. So this law, just think of this law like a law firm, but now digital. So you have your law firm like you have today, but now you have it on a digital space on the cloud. So everything involving, taking money, client invoicing, just like you do from day to day, sending, using WhatsApp sometimes, to send invoice to your client, using chatting on WhatsApp to tell your client, okay, we have court today, we are meeting tomorrow. All of this now you can do on Digits Law. They would have their own client portal where they can upload their documents, where you can conversate with them, where you can, send their invoice, inform them of anything happening, and they are always up to date. So the good thing about Digits Law is they have their own interface, you have your own interface. So that means that nothing is slipping through the cracks anymore. Everybody is aware and updated on, where the current state of their conversation or their matter is. So all of this, we have a very, very robust bill and expense management that helps, law firms be able to track their own payments and also that of their clients. Next slide, please. So we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have a very robust accounting feature. And just like a standalone accounting tool, we've built that into Digits Law itself. So you can report, when I say report, is how much your law firm has spent in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years. You can have all of that on Digits Law. Immediately you're onboarded on Digits Law, and you start, maybe you have like an in-house accountant, that starts updating all of your previous workflows. You can put that on Digits Law, and in minutes you can start getting information about, your auditing, your budgeting, even when, for instance, as lawyers, you go to court for a client and you need to buy 1 or 2 things because of that, maybe court file, case files or something. You can put that in Digits Law. It's going to inform the accountant of the law firm that you spend so amount of money for this client, and you can build that to your clients when next you're billing them. So basically, we've just built a very seamless and very efficient workflow to make sure that legal system in Nigeria is also being moving with times. Basically, next slide, please. Like as I mentioned earlier, Digits Law is like a law firm, but now a digital law firm. So you have teams management whereby, just like in a law firm today, everybody has access to, when you're at the law firm, you do not necessarily have access to everything in the law firm. So you can also create a team setting, permission group, work group. Let's say you're working on a certain matter, right? You can create a group of certain lawyers in your law firm under a certain group, whereby only people in that group are able to see certain aspects of documents and all of that. Next slide, please. So why choose Digits Law? I've really tried to cap it to just, I think 5 bullet points, but there are way more than that. But the first one is, Digits Law is built for the African legal tech ecosystem. So we've designed this specifically to meet our current realities and what can also work for us. It's also secure, it's scalable, and it's cloud ready. We have someone from AWS here. We also use AWS at DigitLaw. And we can, I think she can also attest to how secure and efficient AWS is. And we have enterprise-grade security, robust data protection and infrastructure that makes sure that as your law firm is scaling, DigiSlaw is scaling alongside you. Seamless workflow automation, user-first design, and supporting digital transformation. So I would say something here, even if you're not familiar with technology, you can just get on DigiSlaw and you'll be able to use it efficiently. It's that simple, that efficient, and that easy to use. Next slide, please. So yeah, quickly to run into, we also have designed a mobile app because we all know how it's not important, how it's not really easy to always work with your laptop. So with the mobile app, you have your legal business, basically your legal firm in your phone. So for instance, you're on the go, you're traveling, and you have matters. You can have notifications on your phone can come in and inform you about status of things, where your matters are, and basically collaborations with other members of your team. Next slide, please. And so currently for this presentation, we have, we're running a quick promo for everyone here to onboard on DigiSlaw. Me and my team are outside there. We can do a quick onboarding and you can sign up at DigiSlaw for as low as 50,000 naira for a year, just for you to experience, what we're doing with DigiSlaw and how we're, currently, trying to streamline the whole legal space in Nigeria and also Africa. Next slide, please. So how do you get started? We're outside there, you can reach us. I've also added a link to DigiSlaw, or you can simply just go to your web page and just type in DigiSlaw. You can see our website and you can sign up for a quick demo whereby I get to explain in detail, what DigiSlaw is doing and how we can help, streamline your legal practice. Thank you very much. It's an honor to speak in front of all of you today.
Thank you, Ms. Alaba. Quickly, I would like to do the questions. Yes, outside. Please, I would like to do something very fast. Could we do a photo session? Quite, as in now, sorry. So a quick photo. I just need a quick photo now, please. Mr. Adekoya, Chairman, Prof, then Sir, please, if you could just, yes, please. Yes, no, let's take this one first, then we can. Sorry, a quick photo. We're almost rounding up. I promise you in the next 10 minutes. Sir, please join. So thank you very much. I'm going to do something in the next 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I promise you will be out of here in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I promise you. I'm trying very hard. So one of the things we spoke about, sorry, please, could we settle? Apologies for that, I'm taking your time. So one of the things we spoke about with what PSDF is doing is we're looking at the National Rule of Law Scorecard. I'm sure, sorry, please, could we settle, please? So with the email we sent to you, one thing we shared was the National Agenda for Democracy Strengthening, and I'm sure which you've heard quite a bit on. You know, the chairman spoke about it. The next slide, please. So I'll just come straight to it to say the purpose of the National Rule of Law Scorecard, it's pretty simple. We have been looking at to say basically that there is need to ensure, you know, a predictable and transparent legal system. That's something that we've been speaking about all morning. And looking at the NADS, so what the scorecard does, it brings that agenda to life. That's the National Agenda for Democratic Strengthening, by translating broad principles into measurable indicators. So this is why right now the scorecard is being developed at the moment. Next slide, please. So why do we look at this? You know, because like we've said, and I think the conversation this morning has been talking about it, there's need to strengthen the rule of law. You know, looking at democratic consolidation, private sector confidence, and economic stability. If we strengthen this, at least there'll be more, you know, private sector confidence in, private sector would actually have more confidence in the country, you know, in Nigeria, and then more investments will come. Next slide, please. So for the scorecard design, like I said, we're in the process of designing this right now. What it contains is we have 60 in-law indicators. When we talk about strengthening the rule of law, there are indicators, you know, there are frameworks already that state it, especially in our constitution and, you know, other legal documents. Then there's also the in practice indicator. So the scorecard is going to look at things, not just looking at what is in law, but also what is in practice. So the next slide, please. This is just an example. And what I'm sharing now is basically the in-law and the in-practice indicators as it relates to judicial independence and effectiveness. So for instance, what you can see, the first in-law indicator says, does the Constitution guarantee judicial independence? So that's looking at the law. Then next thing we say, well, let's go to in practice. To what extent is judicial independence respected in the decision-making process? So there are various indicators going there. So the same thing for the judicial independence and effectiveness, we actually have 10 in-law indicators, and we have close to about 30 in practice, 30 to 40 in practice indicators. Go the next slide, please. The next. So now, looking at this, why do we think this is relevant? What is the relevance of the rule of law scorecard to the legal and judicial sector? So for us, what is important is the scorecard will offer a structured evidence base, you know, for assessing judicial independence. Now, let me also give you an insight into this. So basically, the development of the scorecard is not just only looking at what is obtainable here in Nigeria, but also looking at best practices to see how we can ensure that the scorecard actually is as relevant and contains, you know, all the indicators which we would use to track, looking at global practices. For us, that is important. Then, the next slide, please. So what we plan to do, like we said, with the development, there's going to be a pilot implementation, and this cuts across Nigeria. So for the implementation, we're looking at 7 pilot locations, each geopolitical zone, then as well as FCT. So it makes it 7. And these states were actually chosen just not randomly, but based on geography, governance, and legal context diversity, to ensure that looking at the scorecard, we actually have what it takes to measure, you know, I would say to measure the rule of law in Nigeria in a way, to objectively measure the rule of law. Next slide, please. So now, with this, what are the opportunities? Because for us, that's also another key thing we look at. We're not creating the scorecard in isolation, but we think that of course, there'll have to be lots of feedback, from sectors, from the private sector, from civil society, from the legal sector, and that's why we're informing you about this now, because there would also come a time where we would have to engage the legal sector on the scorecard to ensure that we're doing the right things on this. Next slide, please. So in summary, I think the scorecard basically speaks about she's looking at data. For us, looking at data as well as everything we do. So like we said, transforming data into democratic resilience. So that's key for us. And finally, we would like to thank you all for everything, for your conversation today. We'll be reaching out to you after today. Like we said, there's so much more to do, especially ensuring this dialogue continues, because what PSDF is trying to do. For coming, we've come to the end of the session, and I would also like to inform you that lunch is served. I had actually hoped to give you a seaside view or a lagoon view. Unfortunately, the rain has decided that we shouldn't do the lagoon today. So lunch is actually served. Please feel free, go out there, pick your lunch, come in for questions. Sorry if you could put the last slide on. So that's the website of the PSDF, the last slide, yes, the website of the PSDF. For any questions, yes, so it's psddf.org. If you have questions, comments, or you even have contributions on what you think we can do more, please feel free to reach out to us. My email, I would share that. Anyone can ask. I think, no, you saw the invitation, so that's my email address. So please feel free to send me emails, comments, and we'll take it from there. Thank you all so much for coming, and we look forward to having more engagement with you in the coming months. Thank you. And my chairman and keynote speaker, thank you so much, sir, and thank you for forgiving my blunder earlier. DJ Nasima, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Please, lunch is served, please. Sure, I tried now. You see, you did excellent. I tried. I knew that we needed to leave. Sir, please, are you not going to have lunch? Please, please. Because this lunch will not eat itself. Please, lunch is served. It will not eat itself. Oh, please, we need you.